You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's June the 16th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. I'm live here from paceradio.net and 420pace.ca. Cindy has today off, but for us, today I have 8 cannabis and psychedelic articles that include information on cannabis and seizures, its antifungal effect, as well as a study on the perfect pre-rolls. But first, we're going to touch on an article on how the cannabis industry benefits small town Canada. All right, here we go. This is from StratCan. Headline, as I said, how the cannabis industry benefits small town Canada. As Canada grapples with U.S. tariffs and widespread layoffs, cannabis is emerging as an industry that could help smaller communities weather the storm. With U.S. President Donald Trump slapped Canada with sweeping levies, including a 25% tariff on automobiles and 50% tariff on steel and aluminum. As a result, Canada lost 33,000 jobs in March. They say the cannabis industry, though, is largely domestic, which has allowed it to be one step removed from Trump's tariffs. Economist Jim Stafford has told StratCan. He says it's worth investigating the potential of the cannabis industry as a stabilizing factor. Non-traded sectors are going to play a more important role in the next few years. Now, according to the Cannabis Council of Canada, their president, Paul McCarthy, the industry employs about 80,000 people, primarily in small and medium-sized towns where cultivation facilities are often located. A recent StatsCan report found that the industry contributed at least $7.4 billion to Canada's GDP in 2024 and $43 billion since legalization. Now, McCarthy says that the cannabis factory is a great opportunity to revitalize small communities and support communities that perhaps need some good paying jobs. He noted that the industry supports a wide range of roles, from skilled trades to lab technicians to corporate staff, and there is an opportunity for small communities to embrace the industry to bring economic advantages. This has already been done in towns across the country, with the most famous example being Smith Falls. Cannabis growth took over an old Hershey factory there and became the main economic driver for the town. Unfortunately, it's no longer there. There are success stories across the country of cannabis offering impactful employment and boosting economies, according to McCarthy. Disciple Cannabis has facilities in Western Canada, including one located on the outskirts of Calgary, which employs approximately 450 people. Oceanic Relief is based in Newfoundland and Labrador, acquired a brand new fish processing plant whose operations had fallen through. McCarthy said it was a letdown for the town, but cannabis proved to be their savior, and the company now employs over 100 people. Then there's the Cannabis Summit held in BC in Prince George. That was back in 2024. Organizer Nadine Furnell told the StratCan that the festival will transform a previously dead downtown area into a thriving scene, attracting over 2,000 people in one day. She said every vendor at the festival said they made the most money there out of any market that they've attended. One of the biggest success stories of cannabis impact on a smaller community is Organigram, the current industry leader. The company is based in Moncton, New Brunswick, and employs over 725 people, making it one of the largest private sector employers in the province. Mark McKay, Organogram's communications director, told StratCan that the company has contributed over $34 million in local spending. Goes on to say, we've proven to be an economic powerhouse for the province, not only through the jobs we've created, but also through the investments that we've made in the province. Organogram recently paired with Abacus data and found that 62% of Canadians thought that cannabis could play an even more important role in Canada's economy. Out of the survey, nearly 2,000, 9 out of 10 Canadians said it's time to find new ways to grow the economy. Canadians want their country to thrive through an innovative homegrown industries, and cannabis is firmly on that list, according to the CEO of Organogram, Bina Goldberg, which I believe has stepped down. While cannabis can look like a knight in shining armor, it does have its kinks. The economist Stanford noted that if Canada enters a recession, the industry could be affected as Canadians would have less money for spending. He also noted that the industry has its moments of instability, as seen by cannabis growth layoffs in Smith Falls, where the company downsized. There obviously is a risk involved. The community that is thinking about cannabis will have to be very carefully study the demand outlook. Now, McCarthy acknowledged that the oversupply and rapid expansion soon after legalization created turbulence. In the last 5 years, the industry have been characterized by entrenchment and downsizing. However, he says the industry is now entering a new stable phase that is ripe for investment and expansion of facilities. And how much cannabis can help a small town is dependent on how much the industry is growing. And McCarthy was quick to point out government policies that he says are hindering the industry. He highlighted the excise tax and the proliferation of the illicit market as the two biggest factors that are drawing down the cannabis industry, which should be addressed if Canada wants to boost the sector. He says the government needs to get more serious about cracking down on the illegal cannabis. They're stealing jobs from companies that would largely be operating in small towns. Now, Av Singh, the executive director of the Scotian Cannabis Alliance, echoed McCarthy's concerns and told StratCan that the excise tax is a real limitation on the industry and prevents some companies from flourishing. And his organization helps support the industry in Nova Scotia, and he has seen companies struggle and some shut down due to the tax. He says, it's a stranglehold. It's like a foot to your throat. It's really hard to be able to swim when you've got that albatross on you. Now, Singh sees hope in exports, which bypass the excise tax. He says markets like France and Germany could double or even triple exports out of Nova Scotia if they open up. And he says the market is insatiable. People fail to recognize how big cannabis is. Yeah, and it is big. And it's grow. There's no doubt about that. Good morning, Gordo. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you stop in. How's Scotland today? Okay, I'll move on to my next story. And this one is coming to me from Mugglehead Magazine. Headline says what a lot of us know, but the more it's in headlines, the better it is. More to spread around. On this headline, it says, cannabis extracts can minimize number of epileptic seizures, according to a study. That's right. New data has shown that cannabis extracts can be a lifesaver for people plagued by epileptic seizures. Just so you know, this was first discovered back in the 1860s. Published in the journal Frontiers in Neuroscience on May 18th, attention-worthy study found that 19 patients were able to become seizure-free for a 3-month period by ingesting cannabinoids from the plant. Meanwhile, 5 of them went more than a year without experiencing one of the awful attacks thanks to THC and CBD. The authors concluded the results of the study support prioritizing cannabis-based products for medicinal use in cases of drug-resistant epilepsy. Study contributor Evan Lewis says he had been observing the beneficial impact of cannabis oil on those with the condition for more than a decade prior to the recent investigation. Over 10 plus years and 1,000 plus patients, I've seen cannabinoid-based treatments change lives when conventional anti-seizure medications failed, he explained to the social media on Thursday. Lewis and co-authors say that although the results are highly intriguing, additional research is necessary. Limited long-term data on the safety and accuracy of cannabinoid extracts for treating the condition is available. Furthermore, there's a significant lack of credible information on optimal dosing. The assessment from the Toronto investigators was not the only one to turn heads last month. In Thailand, researchers found that 101 children suffering from an average of 75 seizures per month were able to experience a 50% or greater reduction in the nasty occurrences from CBD. The Thai medical grade CBD enriched oil is effective and tolerable for at least 12 months of adjudicative treatment in pediatric drug-resistant epilepsy, they specified in a journal, Pediatric Neurology. It was assessed as a supplemental therapeutic alongside standard drugs used to treat the condition and proved to be valuable. CBD has been studied much more thoroughly than THC due to its psychoactive effects. Now, this is in 2018, the FDA approved a CBD-based drug for the treatment of epilepsy and other conditions that cause seizure, and that was Epilox. So there you go. More studies that show that. But yeah, we got to, as I say, do more studies, even though this has been going on for over 100 years on the seizures and epilepsy. But, eventually we'll have enough studies, right? All right, I'm going to move on to the next story. And here we go. And this one comes to me from newatlas.com. Topical CBD quickly and effectively kills off deadly fungal infections. What can't it do? 2 bioactive ingredients in cannabis have been found to have antifungal properties when applied topically, according to a groundbreaking new study. Discovery comes as the World Health Organization urgently calls for new treatments for potentially deadly fungal infections. We often hear about the threats of bacterial and viral infections, but less frequently about those of fungal infections. But that doesn't mean they're less of a problem. For the first time ever, the World Health Organization recently reported on the urgent need for improved tests and treatments for fungal infections and listed potentially deadly Cryptococcus neoformans as a priority. New research led by Australia's Macquarie University has demonstrated that 2 of the bioactive ingredients in cannabis, CBD and CBDV, have impressive antifungal properties when used topically. When cryptoneuroformans get to your nervous system, it causes life-threatening meningitis, says Dr. Hugh Ding, the study's lead author and a postdoctorate research fellow at Macquarie's School of Natural Science. Hundreds of natural compounds can be extracted from the cannabis plant, and we don't know which ones work. Invasive fungal infections, such as those caused by Candida and Cryptococcus, cause around 3.8 million deaths annually. As is the case with antibiotics, there is a growing worldwide resistance to antifungal drugs that possess a risk to human health. WHO's report on antifungal drugs published in April of 2025 points out that in the past decade, only 4 antifungal medications have been approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the European Medicines Agency, or the Chinese National Medical Products Administration. CBD is the second most prevalent active ingredient in cannabis derived from the hemp plant that doesn't cause a high and isn't considered addictive, and it also is a cannabis plant that does have THC in it. Now, CBDV, which is also non-intoxicating, is less studied and therefore less well known than its media-exposed counterparts. CBD and cannabis' main psychoactive compound, THC, but like CBD, its potential as a medical treatment continues to be explored. Cannabinoids as antifungals are an attractive proposition given their safety profile in humans and the fact that they've already been approved to treat a number of conditions, including epilepsy, nausea, and chronic pain. A few previous studies have shown that cannabis extracts containing a mixture of natural cannabinoids have antifungal properties, including particularly fungi. So the researchers set out to assess the antifungal activity of CBD and CBDV against these neurohormones, specifically across a broader spectrum, as well as other clinically significant fungi. They also hope to elucidate the mechanism of action of the two cannabinoids in fighting these neurohormones. There you go. Well, the researchers tested the fungus killing activity by abilities at different concentrations of CBD and CBDV on them to determine the minimal fungicidal concentration. This concentration was then used to assert the time-dependent effect of both cannabinoids. By 30 minutes after treatment, both CBD and CBDV had rapidly killed off the fungus within 30 minutes. When they combined the cannabinoids with existing endofungal drugs, flaxidozole and amphotericin B, the researchers noted no synthetic or antigenic effects. The cannabinoids didn't seem to interact with the drugs. To assess the broad antifungal effects of the cannabinoids, the researchers tested them against 33 fungal strains, including pathogens designated by the WHO as critically important, as well as diverse strains from veterinary, clinical, and environmental sources. They found that CBD and CBDV were effective against a range of Cryptococcus strains and tinea-causing fungi. They were less effective or ineffective against the Candida strains, suggesting that the pair are not as broad spectrum as the researchers had hoped. In terms of mechanism of fungicidal action through protein analysis, the researchers were able to assert that CBD and CBDV disrupted cell membranes and metabolism. This is important information. Interfering with cell membranes and not cell processes means it's harder for microbes to develop resistance to cannabinoids through mutations or adaptation. They can't easily evolve to repair a broken membrane like they can an altered cellular process. In addition, the cannabinoids disrupted biofilm formation, which is crucial to this neuroform's survival because it shields the fungus from the body's immune system. Finally, as a proof of concept study, the researchers tested the effectiveness of topical CBD as an antifungal treatment in living insects. They used greater wax moth larvae, which are often used as a model for studying fungal infections because these moths share many similarities to mammals' antifungal immune system. Infected larvae treated with topical CBD had survival rates that were near those of uninfected larvae, indicating that CBD could be used as a topical antifungal in the clinical setting. The study's findings are promising. Future research is needed to assess the effectiveness of the CBD and CBDV, which are molecularly similar but exhibit different antifungal activities in animals, including humans. So there you go. Antifungal properties of CBD. Maybe it's something that people can start using on toe fungus. Who knows? Just never know. Maybe it'll work on that. Because, there's lots of people who have that, and apparently there's no cure for it. I'm not 100% sure, but I know a lot of people struggle with it, so it must be something. So if they can just maybe use some CBD that they grew themselves, who knows? see what happens down the road as things go on. All right, on to my last story before I head to break. And this one's coming to me from the International Cannabis Business Conference. Headline says, Antigua and Barbados to expunge cannabis convictions. I can't even get those words out. Sorry, guys. A cannabis conviction on a person's record can wreak havoc on their life long after the penalty of the conviction has been completed. It can prevent people from gaining employment, housing, government assistance, and many other things. My father, whoever the author of this is an unfortunate example of this. He was convicted of a cannabis-only offense in 1986 in Oregon, involving 112 grams of cannabis. He still cannot volunteer as a wrestling coach in Oregon in 2025, even though Oregon legalized cannabis a decade ago, and adults can possess up to 224 grams in their homes. I personally know of somebody who got caught with 3 joints, and they got a criminal record, and they were told they can't go to the U.S. And this is 45 years ago. With that in mind, it's also a big deal when the government decides to expunge prior cannabis offenses and or pardon the individuals involved, which is reportedly what is happening in Antigua and Barbuda. I thought it said Barbados, but it's Barbuda. The Antigua and Barbuda government says it will table at the next sitting of Parliament legislation aimed at expunging the criminal records of individuals convicted of possession for small quantities of cannabis and granting them official pardons, according to the Jamaica Observer in its local coverage. A statement issued following the weekly cabinet meeting said that Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Steadroy Cutie Benjamin has been authorized to draft the legislation that will offer a pardon to persons convicted of having less than 15 grams of cannabis. It is unclear at this time how many individual cases will be impacted. Antigua and Barbuda is an independent Commonwealth archipelago country located in the Caribbean, comprising of 2 namesake islands and several smaller ones. Lawmakers there previously approved a cannabis policy modernization measure that decriminalized individual cannabis possession. Further reforms that would legalize cannabis sales have been pursued, but have so far failed to reach the finish line. So there we go. Another country that's getting on board and improving things for their cannabis people, or for removing their criminal records like that, which is always a good thing as far as I'm concerned. All right, time for me to take a break. And other than that, I will be back in about 2 3/4 minutes. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Education and News. I'm live here at paceradio.net and 420pace.ca.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, open Monday to Friday from 10 till 7 p.m. or by chance. Check out our flags, our t-shirts, plus our hats, and look of that supply of rolling papers, plus much more. We've got bongs and your favorite herbal vaporizers. Look at all the incense we have, as well as for those who collect knives, check out these knives in our collection. And while you're here, stop in to see Shay at the piercing room, where you can get poked by Shay. Daily deals, check them out. Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford, Ontario. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
And I'm back to bring you 4 more cannabis stories or psychedelic stories, wherever the mix is going to be. And don't forget what you're watching. If you like what you're watching, hit that like button, subscribe button, or wherever you may be tuning in. Other than that, let's get started in the second half of the show. We're going to head off to Entrepreneur and find out what's going on down in Texas, because there's a Texas poll that shows Republican voters oppose the hemp ban awaiting governor's signature. And there's a lot of people who don't like this hemp ban that they're coming up with. More Texas Republican voters opposed a recently approved bill to ban intoxicating hemp products that supported, according to a recent survey by Ragnar Research Partners. The survey, which polled 800 likely Republican primary voters in Texas, found that 47% of respondents opposed the ban, while 37% said they supported it, and 16% said they were unsure. Additionally, the pollster found that 45% of likely Republican voters opposed banning THC, with 35% in support and 21% uncertain. Now, Texas Governor Greg Abbott still has not signaled whether he will or won't sign the bill, or whether he is even considering a veto. If the bill does become law, advocates say that the state's hemp industry, which provides more than 53,000 jobs, will be gutted. The Texas Hemp Business Council said in a press release that it has submitted 5,000 handwritten notes and over 180,000 petition signatures calling on the governor to veto the bill. Mark Bordas, THBC's executive director, said in a statement, "Texans do not want SB 3. Texans recognize SB 3 for what it is, an attack on the rights and liberties of Texans that will destroy tens of thousands of jobs." Goes on to say, "We respectively ask the governor to listen to veterans, small business owners, Republican primary voters, and others who want him to veto this heavily handed bill. We went out of our way to conduct the most credible poll possible, in which the segment of the voting population least likely to support our case was queried." The governor has until July the 22nd, so another month, a little more than another month, to decide whether to sign the bill, veto it, or do nothing and allow the proposal to become law without his signature. So let's see what happens there. I was recently talking to a fellow from Texas, and I said to him, "What about the medical program?" And he said that they say that it's not going to affect the medical program, but he's concerned. So, all right, on to the next story. There we go. Nope, it's taking its time. There it is, right there. This one comes to me from earths.com. It says, religious leaders of all faiths ate magic mushrooms in a scientific study, and it changed their lives. For many people, the idea of combining a psychedelic substance with organized religion may sound like a stretch. I gotta agree. Yet, a team of researchers recently investigated the effects of psilocybin on spiritual leaders across several faith traditions, hoping to learn how this compound might influence well-being and religious attitudes. The experts enrolled clergy from major world religions in a study comparing those who received psilocybin sessions with those who did not. The late Roland Griffiths from Johns Hopkins University was one of the scientists at the center of this project, ensuring careful protocols and ethical oversight. Now, psilocybin is the primary compound in certain types of mushrooms. It belongs in a group called serotogenic psychedelics, which means it interacts with a specific set of receptors in the brain. The growing body of clinical work has explored its effects on mood, mental health, and personal meaning. Research suggests that psilocybin can prompt introspection and feelings of correctness. Some participants in past studies have described enduring changes in perspective. These trials have followed standard safety measures and were typically supervised by professionals trained in guiding the experience. Now, clergies hold leadership roles in the faith communities. They often counsel congregants and guide spiritual practices. The researchers wanted to determine if psilocybin assisted sessions might shape the perspectives and the effectiveness of the leaders in their day-to-day vocations. According to the study, members of various denominations and faiths took part. Some received 2 psilocybin sessions spaced about a month apart, while others were placed on a wait list. Afterwards, each volunteer answered questions about spiritual awareness, prayer, and attitudes towards their beliefs. Participants were screened for physical and mental health conditions before the sessions. A comfortable setting was provided on the dosing days, including support with trained facilitators. Many of those who ingested psilocybin said it was among the most spiritual, significant experiences of their lives. Stephen Ross of the New York University Crossman School of Medicine says participants who had received psilocybin reported significantly greater positive changes in their religious practices, attitudes about their religions, and effectiveness as a religious leader. According to the study, improvements in daily spiritual practices and a sense of deeper connection with both one's own faith and other religious traditions were still observed well over a year after the sessions. These trends suggest the psilocybin experience could potentially support religious work by offering fresh perspectives on matters of meaning and devotion. On a non-religious level, many participants noted a positive shift in personal well-being. They reported mood improvements that continued as time passed. These outcomes highlight a pattern similar to previous psilocybin trials in different populations. Not everyone's journey during a psychedelic session is easy. The report acknowledged that psilocybin can bring about intense moments of worry or confusion. Careful screening and supervision seem to reduce potential risks, with no serious adverse effects reported. Still, the authors caution against making sweeping generalizations. They pointed out that the research population was relatively small. The researchers also emphasized that self-selection and expectations might have shaped the experiences to some degree. The researchers noted that the results in clergy were broadly in line with past clinical studies of psilocybin in non-religious participants. In both cases, high-dose sessions led to long-lasting changes in behavior, perspective, and emotional health. What made this trial unique was that the effects showed up in areas directly tied to religious leadership, such as prayer life, perceived vocational effectiveness, and tolerance of their faith. Compared to studies involving cancer patients or individuals with depression, the clergy participants tended to rate their sessions as more spiritually meaningful and less therapeutically intense. This could be due to the nature of their role or their prior exposure to sacred frameworks. Still, about 42% described at least one session was one among the most psychologically challenging experiences of their lives. This project invites more exploration of psilocybin's role in religious contexts. Larger samples from diverse spiritual backgrounds may clarify how much culture and pre-existing beliefs influence the session's outcomes. Some may wonder whether these insights could inform religious education or help religious professionals facing burnout. An upcoming investigation are expected to follow rigorous guidelines. Researchers often stress that psilocybin should only be used in supervised studies or other lawful frameworks to minimize potential harm and misunderstanding. Now, faith leaders stand at a unique crossroads of tradition and human need. Studies like this one spark discussions about new approaches to spiritual care. They also add to the growing literature, suggesting psilocybin's potential for promoting introspection and community well-being. It remains to be seen how religious organizations respond to these findings. Some may embrace research aimed at enriching spiritual life, while others may remain cautious. Either way, the results open a conversation about how substances like psilocybin could interact with centuries established rituals and beliefs. Now, this study was published in the journal Psychedelic Medicines. So there you go. I had seen that headline several times over the last week, and I thought, well, let's look in to see what this is all about. And yeah, so I'm just surprised they got religious leaders to get involved in that. So it was good to see that they did, and it looks like the results were good results in the end. All right, moving on to my next story. There we go. This one comes to me from Green State. It says, study reveals secret to perfect pot pre-rolls. Okay, let's find out what the perfection is. Results from a phase 1 of the groundbreaking science of smokability study are in. And for the first time, researchers have scientific data showing exactly how water activity and moisture levels affect what consumers actually experience when smoking a pre-roll. According to the results gathered from both laboratory experiments and from surveys of actual pre-rolled smokers, pre-rolls with a water activity of 0.65 AW deliver significant more cannabinoids and terpenes in consumers than products at other moisture levels, all with less harshness. With this knowledge, pre-roll producers can, for the first time, begin optimizing pre-roll quality based on actual smoking performance rather than the guesswork. Now, what is this science of smokability? Well, it is a first of its kind scientific assessment that goes beyond traditional laboratory testing, and it's led by Dr. Allison Justice and Dr. Marcus Rogan. Both leading scientists in the cannabis industry, and this research is a multi-year project that combines rigorous laboratory analysis with real-world consumer experience. The researchers used a sophisticated approach that paired smoking machine analysis with actual consumer testing. First, high-quality hemp pre-rolls from a strain called Fun Dip were carefully manufactured on professional pre-roll equipment and then stabilized at 3 different water activities, 45 AW, 0.65, and 0.85. Okay. And it said, using a machine that literally smokes a real joint, scientists measured exactly what compounds were delivered in the smoke. Meanwhile, consumers received pre-rolls in airtight containers and received feedback on their smoking experience, creating a comprehensive picture of how water activity affects product performance. Now, a quick note though, consumers only were only sent 0.45 and 0.65, as 0.85 is outside the safety range because it can support microbial growth. So that's not good. Sorry, folks, I got an itchy nose. It just don't go away. Now the pre-roll study reveals from the study, they were published in the March-April 2025 issue of Cannabis Science and Technology. And they said the 0.65 level emerged as the clear winner across multiple measures, delivering superior performance that could translate directly into better customer satisfaction and potentially higher sales for producers. And when researchers analyzed the smoke from pre-rolls at different water activity levels, they found that those at 0.65 delivered the highest cannabinoid concentration, with a 0.5 pre-rolls following closely behind. The study tested in multiple cannabinoids, including CBD, CBG, CBC, and THC, with consistent results across all compounds tested. The difference was dramatic for the wettest of samples. Pre-rolls at 0.85 produced only 30% of the cannabinoid content compared to the optimal 0.65. This finding was has significant implications because it means consumers smoking pre-rolls with the wrong moisture level are literally getting fewer active compounds for their money and may turn to other brands to provide them. The terpene results told an equally compelling story. Pre-rolls at 0.65 consistently delivered the highest terpene concentrations overall, leading researchers to conclude that this level would provide the most pronounced flavor profile due to their greater terpene yield. Perhaps more importantly, for consumer satisfaction, the consumer survey revealed significant differences in the harshness of each smoke, while overall desirability slightly favored the 0.65 pre-rolls. The 0.45 produced a more irritating experience for smokers, presumably creating a harsher smoke due to the drier cannabis. Now, that could make a smoother experience at 0.65 a key differentiator for customer retention. So beyond product quality, the study highlights potential financial implications for producers. The difference between flower at 0.45 versus 0.65 water activity corresponds to moisture content levels of about 5% and 9% respectively. According to the research, the difference amounts to about 18.4 grams per pound of flour. At an unassumed market price of, say, $1.50 per gram, this weight differential represents an estimated revenue loss of $27.20 per pound for material at the lower water activity level, or about 4% total revenue per pound. The results provide pre-roll manufacturers with concrete science-based guidelines for optimizing their products. Targeting a water activity at 0.65 could help pre-roll manufacturers maximize cannabinoid delivery to consumers, enhance flavor profiles through optimal terpene preservation, reduce hardness for smoother smoking experience, and potentially increase revenue through optimal moisture retention. For producers currently working with different moisture levels, these findings suggest that adjusting water activity could be a relatively straightforward way to improve product performance without major changes to the cultivation or process methods. The results highlights the critical importance of proper drying and curing techniques, and these processes directly influence the final water activity of cannabis products. For an industry and a category where consumer satisfaction and repeat businesses are paramount, achieving that 0.65 AW active water sweet spot could be the difference between a pre-roll that keeps them coming back and one that doesn't. There you go. It could be. But how does one measure it? Obviously, it's pre-roll. I bought pre-rolls and found it's been sitting in the packaging for 6 months. I don't know what its AW reading would be, but it wouldn't be what it started out as. There you go. Oh, Gordo got back to me. He says, brilliant news. Hope they pass it around. I hope so as well, Gordo. I hope so as well. All right, we're going to move on to my last story of the day. And this one, as I click away here, come on. There, it's just taking its time loading up. You know, I'm not expecting any bad weather. I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing nice sunny skies, and it's a nice day out there. Headline, Cannabis Business Time says, U.S. Senator Congresswoman call on Trump to end costly marijuana arrests. Yes. A pair of Democrats on Capitol Hill called BS on Elon Musk's promised federal spending cuts and instead offer another plan to President Donald Trump on June the 11th that includes cannabis reform. U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren and Rep. Melanie Stansbury, in a letter to Trump, said unnecessary federal arrests and detention programs are costing taxpayers billions of dollars and suggested decriminalizing cannabis. The Congresswoman highlighted 6 recommendations to eliminate more than $2 trillion in wasteful government spending over the next decade. Warren and Stansbury pointed out that the federal cannabis prohibition remains despite 24 states legalizing the plant for those 21 years of older. They also told Trump that imprisoning elderly and terminally ill patients who pose little risk to public safety or those with minor technical violations of prohibition and parole makes no sense. By ending these practices, the government could save billions of dollars, they wrote in the 7-page letter detailing their plan to also crack down on health care, profiteering to save roughly $1.5 trillion and to target waste and abuse in the federal tax code to save more than $1 billion over the next 10 years, among other measures. In 2023, law enforcement officials made more than 217,000 cannabis-related arrests, 84% of those of which were for possession charges only, according to the crime data from the FBI. In comparison, Warren and Stansbury says the White House's tax cut for ultra-wealthy, such as businessmen like Musk, will cost U.S. taxpayers $4 trillion over the next decade. The letter comes in the aftermath of Trump and Musk's fallout, where the leader of the free world and the richest man on the planet showcased the feud earlier this month on social media. As Musk leaves his post as Trump's special government employee at the helm of the administration's made-up Department of Government Efficacy and returns to the private sector, Warren and Stansbury cited on May the 30th Wall Street Journal report that indicated the president recently asked his advisors, was it all bullshit? The question was about Musk's promise to slash $1 trillion in government spending, a figure that was half from the original promise of $2 trillion. The answer is obvious. It was. Warren and Stansbury wrote. And it goes on to say that Mr. Musk's effort at Dodge were never truly about cutting waste. It goes on to say the Congresswoman cited a 44-page memorandum released in April by the Homeland Safety and Government Affairs Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation. The memo calculated the risks of Trump's providing the world's rich men. Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to get down to more cannabis-related information here, people. I'm trying to avoid all this government stuff. Okay, all right. Now, they claim in the letter to Trump that Dodge failed to identity and eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse. They say in the June 11th letter, it's similar to a 21-page letter that Warren sent to Musk 3 days after Trump's inauguration. And this is the Drug Enforcement Administration and Customs and Border Patrol continue to raid cannabis businesses and seize cannabis plants, including in states where cannabis is legal. Warren wrote in January. She says that these arrests and seizures unnecessarily drain federal resources. Dodge should recommend that the Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security conserve resources by deprioritizing costly arrests and other enforcement actions targeting cannabis activity, at least where the activity is legal in the jurisdiction where it occurred. Hear, hear. The latest letter comes at a time when support of the cannabis legalization is at an all-time high, with 70% of U.S. adults favoring the federal reform. It also comes as the DOJ's proposed rule to reclassify cannabis as Schedule III under the Controlled Substances Act is now more than a year old. The current process has remained dormant since the DEA's chief administrator law judge granted an interlocutory appeal 5 months ago. Trump signaled support for rescheduling during his 2024 campaign, and his nominee to lead the DEA, Terry Cole, said during his April 30th confirmation hearing that picking up the rescheduling process that was initiated under President Joe Biden would be one of his first priorities. However, Cole refrained from saying where he stands on the DOJ's proposal. For many cannabis business leaders, rescheduling represents the difference between losses and profitability in the forms of deducting ordinary business expenses from the federal taxes. Under a Schedule I listing, Schedule 280E of the Internal Revenue Code prevents them from doing so. As the ranking member of the Senate Banking Committee, Warren has long backed banking reform for the cannabis industry, as well as aligning federal cannabis laws with state reform. And in the end, Warren and Stansberry wrote, "You should learn from Elon Musk and Dodge's mistakes and end your attacks on critical federal programs and interact. Instead, act on these common recommendations." Yeah, legalize, just federally legalize. It makes so much sense to me. It does not make any sense with what basically half the states have legalized it recreationally. 4/5, because you're at to 40 states have legalized it for medical purposes. Just think how much more you could get in, you could bring into your coffers, how much more access patients could get to it by opening up those doors. Do legalization federally. Go all the way. Just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense whatsoever to me. And, catch the trend. Look around. All kinds of countries are legalizing cannabis and starting the wheels to get rolling. And unfortunately, the U.S. is, as it said, the review hasn't gone anywhere in 5 months. It's just sitting there, not doing anything. So hope they get things moving on that one way or the other. Let people know, because people are waiting. So, alrighty. Other than that, I think that's it for today, folks. And I'm going to set down the comments there. There we go. And I'm gonna make my way to doing what I was going to do for the rest of the day myself. I got some appointments I got to attend to. So we'll talk to you soon. Actually, catch you this coming Thursday with the next episode of Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. But for today, that's it. Thanks to our buds at Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, At-Eze.ca, and Limestone City Hydroponics.ca. In closing, as always, thanks for tuning in or listening to the program. Depends on where you're getting us at, because don't forget, even though we're visual, still a radio network, we're still putting stuff out as an audio podcast. And please don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop.
Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.